Happy Sunday. Good morning, Sovereigns. As promised, this video is going to be about the Road Traffic Management Act. I'm going to explain about drivers and public modes of conveyance, not a vehicle, travellers, and then vehicles. Some of you have asked if you need a driving licence, MOT, tax, insurance for your cars because you are a free man, natural man, travelling person, and therefore you do not need these documents. You're asking if you can get rid of these documents or stop paying for them. Well, I'll tell you a story, a hypothetical story. I'll create a scenario and I'll tell you what would happen in real life, what I would do, how I would do it, and I'll argue the points for and against that, and we'll have a discussion threads underneath on the YouTube channel or in the Sovereign Solicitors group. So David's driving along a road. I'm doing within the speed limit. Next thing I see, there's a police car behind me, and the sirens are sounding and the lights are flashing. The blues and twos are on. So this means that there's an emergency for the police to put on the sirens and for also to put on the lights. They're normally going off on an emergency. They've been called to attend. If they do not pass you and they sit behind you with the lights on and the sirens, you would indicate left and pull over to the side of the road, the hard shoulder if you're on the motorway. Maybe there's something wrong with your vehicle. Maybe the police are going to pull you up and advise you that maybe you've got a flat tyre. Who knows until they get here. So with that said, if you do get pulled up and they flash the lights and use the siren, this is only to be used in an emergency. To pull you over to tell you there's a light out or there's an alleged offence with your vehicle which doesn't conform to the Road Traffic Act, then this is not an emergency. So number one, you'd question why they're using their lights and sirens to pull you over. So you would stop your vehicle, pull over to the left, lock your doors, open the window about this much, and start filming them with the camera. The police are working in a public office, so anybody that's in a public office is allowed to be filmed. So make sure you film all of the conversation and everything that happens. So they proceed to walk up to your car. You've locked the doors, you've opened the window that much, and you would then say, "Good evening, good morning, officer, is there a problem?" And let him tell you or her tell you what the problem is. Let's say they've pulled me up to tell me one of my rear light units is not working, the side marker lamp for the rear of my car. 6 o'clock at night, it's a dark evening, it's raining, poor visibility, so they're advising me to tell me that they've pulled me up to let me know there's a light out. This would be under section 163, 4 or 5 of the Road Traffic Act. You'll have to familiarise yourself with this document. I'm not going to go through it all now. I have given it the once over. It's a massive document, but in there, this is the source of the information. It will tell you about drivers and drivers having the legal requirement for a driving licence, tax on the vehicle, and an MOT. As a driver, in the eyes of the law, in the Black's Law 9th revision edition of the legal dictionary, which is the legalese language we go on about, that would say that if driver is required under legal requirements to have the three mentioned finances, MOT, insurance and tax, because in the eyes of the law, a driver is someone who is working for the government or is paid to drive and is committing commerce on the Queen's Highway. So they pull me up, and the first question the police ask us is normally, "Are you the driver of this vehicle?" To which I would reply, "No, I am not the driver of this vehicle. I am a traveller, officer." I would then stop the conversation and say, "Am I under arrest? Has the law been broken? Is there an emergency? And are you under your oath today?" And he would reply to these questions and probably tell me, yes, there is an issue of which they'd like to talk to me about. Maybe it's a roadside spot check, traffic spot check, to check my details and the integrity of the car. I would then say, okay, well, if for you to use your lights and to pull me over and to stop me, you must suspect a law has been broken. And he would say, yeah, there's a marker out on the back of your car. This is why the reason we're pulling you over, to let you know your vehicle is not roadworthy under the Road Traffic Act. I would then say, well, I am not a driver, I am travelling. I am not subject to the Road Traffic Act at this time, as I'm travelling, and I do not consent to the Road Traffic Act. It's my constitutional, inherent, inalienable right to travel on the Queen's Highway unhindered, to travel, yes, not to be a driver. And I would say I'm speaking legalese to you. You're speaking legalese to me. You're obviously knowledgeable or not on this language and its implied meanings. I would say a driver to you is a driver under those circumstances, not someone sat behind the wheel of a motor-propelled device. Do you understand? And then he may try to sidetrack me, but he may ask me if it is my vehicle, of which I would say no, because the legalese definition of the Black's Law Dictionary, a vehicle, again, is something that's being used for commerce by a driver and is subject to having an MOT, tax and insurance. So it's a private mode of conveyance, and I am travelling, so I am not committing any joinder to the Road Traffic Act or my 2D legal fiction with regards to me needing to have MOT, tax and insurance. I would then say to him, if he asks me if I have a driving licence, I do have a driving licence. It is not me, it is not my name on there. This is a state-owned name. I am a natural man. I am performing and exercising my inalienable, inherent constitutional rights to travel on the Queen's Highway. If he asked me my name, I would say, am I obliged to give that at this time? As I've told you, I'm a natural man. That's all you need to know. Here is the driving licence for my 2D legal fiction. Everything is correct and above board. I have a licence in my state-owned name. I have insurance, MOT and tax on the private mode of conveyance. Not that I'm obliged to have it, but we need to have these documents and pay these accounts and have them in order for these such reasons, because if you don't, they will look to prosecute you for an offence under the Road Traffic Act, which is not having MOT, tax, insurance or a driving licence. We do not need these, and people are asking if they can deregister their vehicle from the DVLA and then not pay road tax, not pay insurance and not have an MOT. This is a possible route of an avenue that you can go down, but it's very hard, and it will need a separate video to cover all the letters and the details and how to format them and who to write to, the DVLA and also the local borough councils, the police, metropolitan, not councils, the police, metropolitan boroughs, and you'd have to write to the chief executives and the chiefs, the operating chiefs of all the local metropolitan district police around your area and anywhere where you may wish to travel, to inform them what you've done with deregistering your vehicle, putting insignias on there and exercising your right to travel unhindered on the Queen's Road, not ever under commerce but just for domestic purposes. This again would be a separate video, so for the time being you must understand that until you follow these instructions of deregistering and informing everybody and writing your letters and serving them upon the chief executive officers of the DVLA and of the police and government branches, that you will be required to have these, otherwise you will be arrested for an offence under the Road Traffic Act. And yes, it's just an offence, but you will be required to have these, even though it is not for you, it is for your 2D legal fiction, your state-owned name. So the police may go back to the roadside now. The police may say to me that the light is out and that's an offence and it needs to be sorted. I would always remain as a natural man, and I would always be a traveller and never a driver for the definition of the Black's Law Dictionary. I'm not committing commerce, I'm not earning money, I'm not working for the government, I am travelling privately in a mode of conveyance. If you say you're a traveller and you're in a vehicle, you've committed joinder and you're into a contract then with your 2D legal fiction, and you are giving jurisdiction to the officers to enforce the Road Traffic Act. So as long as you say you are a traveller and it is not a vehicle, so you're not a driver and it's not a vehicle, it's a private mode of conveyance, you're exercising your constitutional right to travel on the Queen's Highway, and for what it's worth, the vehicle has a current in force, a live MOT certificate, you have tax on the vehicle, you have insurance on the vehicle, and your 2D legal fictions driving license is in order. So all the paperwork, legal paperwork, this isn't lawful, it's legal, is all in order. You would then thank him for giving you the notification that your light is out, brake light, tail light, indicator, whatever it may be, and say, are you free to go? You will get that fixed. He may then try to ask you to leave the vehicle and step into the rear of the car because you're speaking legalese to him, and he thinks you may have something to hide, or that because you've mentioned that you're alive and dead, he may think you're crazy. You do not have to leave the vehicle. You can continue filming. You can explain to him that under diplomatic immunity, different laws apply to different people, and they're not. It isn't the law of the land is the law for everybody. We all operate under common law, and we all respect common law, and we know what they are. Do not cause harm, injury, or loss. So therefore, he's got no jurisdiction over you unless you give him jurisdiction, which is, as I've said, with those points and words, and agreeing to be a driver or in a vehicle. Or if you don't know what you're saying to him, and you point out that he's speaking legalese, and you do not understand legalese, and for them to speak English to you and not use legalese and strictly English, then you could tackle it this way. But unfortunately, the police speak legalese, and they try and get us to enter into a contract without full disclosure being given at the time for you to be a driver in a vehicle. The first two questions that they ever ask people on road traffic incidences, or when they stop us. So if you haven't crashed into anybody, you haven't run anybody over, you haven't caused harm, there's no complaining injured party there, then you are always a traveller, you are always in a private mode of conveyance, and you are never to contract with the policeman with regards to these issues. The question, are you operating under your oath today in the capacity of a policeman, is to ascertain whether or not they are just being lawful in their business in a public office, or whether they're trying to extract money from you, being an officer under Admiralty law, which is the law of the sea. We are on land, and we are using a transportation device between a port on land. Between the ports, we have a transportation device. It's a car is classed as them as a device to travel in between ports. So when they're not ruling you on the sea on a boat under Admiralty, they're ruling you on the land under common law, which the common law is then used to link you to this law of the sea under Admiralty, which is, again, the officer works as a Admiralty officer for the Crown State, and an officer, you'll remember, works on a boat, and the boat comes from the sea to the land into a port, and then obviously from the port items and people come off the boat onto land, and that is a manifestation of items, people, assets, goods, things like this. Whenever people or products get off a boat and are delivered onto land, it's called a manifest. You get a manifest, a passenger manifest, or an itinerary manifest for the stocks and goods on that vessel, because the day before that port was empty, the boat wasn't there, the people and the products didn't just magically appeared. They manifested overnight. The next day it was brought onto the land from the sea using a manifestation device, a manifest report, and whether it be goods or people, then people and goods are managed to come onto the land. So it goes from Admiralty to common law. But whilst on the land, these officers will try to get you via joinder and other such ways for you to contract to Admiralty law from common law and let that jurisdiction apply upon you. But that jurisdiction only applies upon you if you knowingly give that contractual consent to them. Half of the time they speak in a strange language, legalese, which looks and sounds like English that isn't English, that has different meanings to the implied words. So driver and vehicle, you understand now, are under the Road Traffic Management Act for somebody who is getting paid to do a business or to travel, and you are not getting paid, and you are not commercing, you are travelling. So you don't need to pay to travel, but you do need to have these documents in full, actually live and in order, which is your MOT, insurance, tax and driving licence for your state-owned name. You as a natural living man or woman do not require these, but must have them to go about your business daily unhindered. These are the ways in which they try to attach your living man, natural man, to your 2D legal fiction in state-owned name. So under an offence, no offence has the full weight of the law given to it unless the governed consent to it and give them authority to use admiralty with you on the land. You do not need to consent. Your full disclosure is not given, and they speak a secret language. So once you've got this in your head and you know how to speak and how to address the people, the policemen, and ask them what capacity they're in, tell them what capacity you are in, and your documentation is all legal and correct, then there is no problem. You cannot just drive a car without having an MOT, tax and insurance, and then expect them to let you go, because they won't, and you have committed an offence. So unless you have got the relevant paperwork to hand, and you have written to the DVLA, and you have deregistered your car, and you've written to the police and the chief commissioners of the metropolitan branches, and you've got all your paperwork and your driving licence rescinded and your vehicle deregistered and it's in order, you will suffer problems. And even when you do that, you will still suffer problems. So there is no reason why you would want to do that without checking with us first and checking what the relevant details are to have that done, and why you would do that, and the implied actions that will follow that, and how much hassle you will get. Your vehicle may get impounded, you may lose it, you may be subject to fees of £120 a day. So once again, you do not and cannot travel on the Queen's Highway without these documents for your 2D legal fiction in order. And if you have gone through the paperwork and deregistered and successfully travelled on the Queen's Highway without being unhindered, then I would very much like to hear from you and look at the letters and how you formatted them, what you've said and what the letters back came as, and how you have defined yourself and how they have amended their records to reflect this. You have to conform, unfortunately, and if you don't conform, then you need to protect yourself, and the ways to protect yourself are as we've just detailed here, and the reasons why you are a driver and the reasons why you are a traveller have been outlined, and the reasons why you're in a private mode of conveyance and not in a vehicle have been outlined. The Road Traffic Act is governable by consent. If you do not consent to it, this is what you would argue as a natural man. This only applies to your 2D legal fiction, the named driver. You are not a named driver, you are a man or woman with a name, exercising and invoking your natural constitutional rights, and you are allowed to do this. Any other issues that you've got with driving, traffic officers, admiralty law, joinder, and the issues which you've got, fees and fines for, or letters stating that maybe you've driven in a bus lane, in a prescribed lane, or a tram lane in the prescribed time, being in that lane, we can argue the points of who owns the road, who manages the road, what capacity the council and the local boroughs operate in, and if you are actually liable to pay that under the Bill of Rights Act, they need to bill you correctly. Equality is paramount in the eyes of the law, and the judge needs to sit there before this case and make a judgment on it. The council are not jury, executioner and judge. That's in the wrong order, but they seem to think that they are, and they just send a computer issued letter from normally my area, the Nottinghamshire County Bulk Handling Centre, and it says is all unlawful practice of which they're committing. So give me your thoughts, comments, and what you believe to be true and effective if you have done so with regarding deregistering and operating without tax, MOT and insurance. If you do have an accident and you cause harm, injury and loss, and you haven't got a policy of insurance, MOT, tax, or driver's licence, you will be getting sued for being guilty of causing harm, injury and loss, and you will be privately prosecuted as an individual and be liable to pay for the damage that you've caused, which is under common law, is rightly so. That's it for now. I tried to keep it short. I don't know what we're on, 18 minutes, so it's ran over. I can never do a 10-minute video. Peace, love and light, guys. We'll be back soon.